one. Welcome, everybody. Welcome back, actually, to this extraordinary podcast. Today, I am here with Nathan Brunetta.
Yeah, how y'all doing?
Nathan, I met Nathan through Just in Time and as well as through Ivan. I can't hear myself. Can you hear yourself?
I can hear myself. I can hear you.
Oh, whatever. Yeah, I met him through Ivan. He works at Just in Time. He was a participant when he was available to be a participant. And anything else that you want to say to the people that may not know who you are?
Well, I guess you're going to get to know me on this podcast a little bit, which will be nice and warm. As far as anything that I could tell you right off the bat, I view life with a very large perspective as far as how I see things. So, when we're having this podcast, I would just ask everybody to keep that in the front of their mind because it'll help understand me a little bit more. And I want you all to see me or hear me in this case.
Yeah, definitely. That's what I tell people. Like, if you have something that you want to show who you are, it's going to come out. Because if that's your characteristic, if that's your personality, it's going to come out through the conversation. It's going to come out throughout whatever topics we go through. People will notice it if they're ready to see it,
I'm ready to come out.
It comes
brother.
in and I'm ready to come out. So anyways, so I have a few questions here. I mean, we don't have to keep to the script, but I mean, you can if you want, if we run out of things to talk about.
Sure.
So I know you're really into golf right now lately because you go with Ivan every week, and Ivan has invited me, but it's always on a Sunday when I don't want to do anything. So
Yeah, me too.
But I've gone to the range several times. I even went with my coach. He took me because he also golfs, and he was saying that he wants to meet up with all y'all as well. How did you get into golf?
So, working for Just in Time for Foster Youth, one of the things that I would do before Ivan took this position over is I would go out to the community and I would pick up items that people wanted to go ahead and donate to the organization. And during one of these pickups, during the training, as far as me helping Ivan understand how to do this process, there was this amazing, wonderful lady who had her husband pass away about 10 years ago. And she gave us a bunch of furniture for the young people. And then there was this golf set. And, I was kind of expressing interest as far as like, I really want to get into golf again. And she ended up gifting me the golf set, which I thought was just, so incredible because she recognized that there was this passion that I wanted to fulfill. And, she really helped me do that. So that's kind of how I initiated my whole involvement with golf.
So you had already practiced golf before that?
Yeah, practice is a really good word. probably about 15 years ago, I had an older friend who was probably in his 50s, and he invited me out to play. And I found the game fascinating because it was the only sport that I really consciously went into with this competitive nature just for me. I didn't have to be better than anybody else but my last shot. And that not only fascinated me, but it kind of hooked me in. And, I lost touch of it because I went through a minimalistic stage and got rid of everything. And now I'm re-engaged with it. I've got an amazing golf buddy, Ivan, which that I love going out and playing with,
Yeah, one thing that I tell Ivan about golf that a lot of sports are not that it's a characteristic specific to golf is that you can play and have a conversation with whoever you're playing. You're not only just playing against yourself and against the people that you go with, but as well as you're having a conversation, you're getting to know them because there's a lot of like quote unquote downtime because you have to wait for them and then so on and so forth. So you build this like community within those people, and it's a good like spot to do business, a good spot to have a meeting and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think you're hitting a lot of good points. And one thing that I just find really comforting is that those conversations, whether they're happening with other people or with yourself, are just still really beneficial because it's that reflective, like, let me get to know you a little bit more, but also let to get, myself a little bit more. Because when you make a bad shot or, you feel like you're not in the game, like it really does give you an opportunity to say, okay, what do I want to do next?
Yeah, and you have to reflect, like, what's stressing me out? Why am I not in this moment right now? Because even when I go to the range, I'm no professional. I don't do it all the time, but the mic is on this side.
Got it.
Yeah.
Right,
You can move it around if you want to.
I'm a moving kind of guy.
Yeah, so when I go, like, if I find myself a little bit somewhere else, I'm not focusing on my stance. I'm not focusing on how I'm positioning my arms or anything like that. So I start to realize, okay, no, I can't be thinking about that. It's just for the here and the now. I have to be right here. Find it very therapeutic in that sense.
100%. I think that's why Ivan keeps sucking me back in and breaking my pocketbook.
So do you guys do competitions, or you guys do it for fun?
No, not really. I mean, you can you can create this profile on some golf profile. I think it's like SG or WA, something like that. And it'll actually allow you to track your scores so you can see how well you are playing or not playing. So we haven't done it that just yet. We're more just having fun with it, and we're experimenting different ways that we can just stay present, like you mentioned, throughout the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just observed that from the little bit that I've done, and I know that that's a part of you that you like to embrace, like that.
It's powerful.
Yeah,
it's powerful.
Yeah. You try to find those little moments of yourself that where you can reflect on yourself, and then just take that little time, take that breather, and be like, okay, I'm here right now. There's nothing else around.
Yeah, and I think to just get more clear with your question as far as the answer goes, what really keeps me playing golf and coming back and really enjoying it to the level in which I do is that ability, is to reflect in a very in the moment way, and it might be directed towards the game of golf, but how I look at it is that's just capacity building for me. So that way, when I'm out there in the world and something happens and I need to reflect, in the moment powerfully, so I can create this transformative change myself, then it's going to give me that opportunity to do it. Yeah. So I look at it as like training.
Yeah, it's you're exercising that part of your.
Yeah, my fiance doesn't see it that way because the bank account. But one day I'm gonna get it.
One day you'll take her with you, and you can see how the stress just comes out.
She's been with me, but it doesn't change the cost of the game. Yeah. So I think that's one of the things that you gotta weigh out with the ROI. What's your return of investment for you? Not only investing your time, but also your finances into this sport, right? And for me, I look at it like personal development, and you have to invest it in yourself, whether it's a sport, reading, or conversation, if you're ever going to grow. And that's what I believe life to be about, is to grow. So.
Yeah, that's one of the topics that I always bring up here. Like, if you want to better your life in some way, I mean, in ways that you have control over. I mean, there's certain things that you have no control over, and of course, the control that you have on that is how you receive it, how do you react to it. Yeah. So that's what I always like. That's one of the themes that I have throughout this podcast. Like, it's always like that. It's always telling people, like, you take responsibility for how you feel, even if the things may be out of your control. So the more control you have over your emotions, quote unquote, the better you're going to be adapt to do other things. So you're not caught up on that moment, on that like past event or whatever it may be. Yeah. I've had these conversations, and they always go that way too, because I noticed that like that's my way of thinking now. It took me a while. I mean, I'm only 24 now. I mean, since last week. So it's like a lot of people think, oh, you're too young to think those things. It's, oh, like you haven't been through a lot. But it's like, haven't I though? Like, what constitutes a lot?
Yeah.
Like, what is that? What's that measure? And I think that's a common misconception when it comes to like how people address youth or how youth address older generations. They're like, oh, these people, like, they lived in the era where racism was okay, and that's not true. Like, yeah, the majority of people did have this racist like bias, but that doesn't mean that everybody was like that. Like, that was just what was like shown in the media and the history books and all this stuff. Like, that's not the whole population.
Yeah,
there's a reason why the civil rights movement happened, because not everybody thought that way. So
you bring up a good point, and I think it's recognizing that each of us, whether you're in this generation, a future generation, or the one that has passed, we've learned certain things. We're creatures of habit, right? And we're also meaning makers. This is one of the most powerful things about us as human beings, is that we have these programs that are implanted in us, and I think that is a very superficial reliance that people in society use as a way to not move forward and to not progress themselves, whether that's personally or professionally. And I think the more people recognize, and I think this is what I'm hearing you say, the more people recognize that, this is who I want to be. And if this is not in line with the actions that I'm doing, then something's not right.
Yeah.
And I got to make that decision of, am I okay with that? Which in my research, people aren't. Right? Or are they going to go ahead and just put it outside of themselves, and all of a sudden, like you mentioned earlier, well, it's not within my control, I can't do anything about it. So, people, I believe, need to be warmed up to that, because when you start to step into yourself and you start to recognize how much power you actually have as this unique being of trillions of photons that just somehow formed this amazing creature that can somehow embody consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Like, wow, it's pretty powerful. So, it's good to see another person that has that same understanding.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you mentioned like the biology of the human body, because that is the
Whew.
craziest part. I mean, that's what I study.
Yeah.
I study the biochemistry of like human nature.
Yeah.
So basically, I study everything that's the chemical reactions that happen in anything biologically, plants, animals, human bodies, and so on and so forth. So to me, every single time I learn that stuff, it's not even about the math. It's not even about the theory. It's not even about that. It's the idea of how all these things are happening within us within seconds, and we don't have to do anything about it. Like it just happens. And that's just crazy to me. And the more you do things outside that are not used to your body, you're harming it. You're causing it to react faster, which causes cancer, which causes all these other things. That to me is crazy to understand that and to think how everything that we do daily actually has an effect on us, and we may not see it. And it's not only just what we consume; it's how we think as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's a real, it's unfortunate to say it in this way, but it's a radical concept to view it in the clear way that I think you and I both do. And the reason why is because conceptually, I believe it's really hard for people to, jump into an experience where they can not only own their power, right, but they can also, make the appropriate action steps to change, And so you look at, even just society now, it's the same pattern that people go through until they just are able to create that space to see, okay, what is it that I want to move forward in, and let's do it. Because the thought is like, if you are healthier, right, then you're going to be able to express yourself more. Your body,
Definitely.
And this from a biological level, your body is constantly trying to find balance and fight for that balance within your own system. So if you're aiding it, if you're doing all these things like relaxing and mindfulness and proper nutrition, then man, like how much more are you going to be able to express your innate talents? Like why wouldn't you want to do that? That's how I look at it.
Well, I mean, of course, there's always like the external factors. There are people that are either in a situation of oppression, like they're oppressed, or they're being controlled by an authority figure. So there's always that. But even in those situations, I mean, some foster youth could be in those situations or have been in those situations where they have literally no control over their own decision making because they're not the age of, like what you would consider legally be able to do that. So like that to me is the most complicated spot to like tell somebody, oh, you have the control over your emotions, how you feel, because it might sound so far off. It might sound like, oh, I can't relate to that.
Yeah.
But even though it sounds like that, you can, because all that stuff that is happening to you is still not under your control. And if you understand that, you get that it's not under my control. This is not my fault. Like this is not because of me. This is because this person has their own internal struggles. They have their own things that they're dealing with. Unfortunately, they're putting it out on me, but that doesn't dictate how my life is going to be later on. Like I'm going to learn from their mistakes, my mistakes, from all this that I'm feeling. That's the way I see it, at least. I mean, it sounds so harsh, because you don't want to hear that. Like you just want to be out of that spot at that moment.
Yeah.
But it's so tough to like tell somebody you're going to be okay when it doesn't look like it.
Yeah, man. I mean, I wholeheartedly feel that. For those of you who don't know who I am, like I said earlier, my name is Nathan Brunetta, and my life's philosophy is KIP, and that stands for Keep It Positive. And the essential nature of that is to really shift your perspective from, why is this happening, right? To what can I learn from this?
Mm-hmm.
And how I see it is that right there is the very first building block in order for someone to get to a place where they can look at their experiences, whether positive or negative, challenging or oppressed, and say, okay, where's their value? Because as human beings, like I mentioned earlier, we are natural meaning makers. I mean, we're constantly trying to create connections so we can understand this thing that we call reality. And so if you can just create that very first step of shifting the lens in which you see things, then all of a sudden you and this is a thought and my belief that you almost create this out of body experience where you're not so much in this objective experience as you are being able to look at it objectively. And in that objective experience, not only does it allow you to pull meaning or a lesson from that, but it'll also allow you to just propel yourself faster. I can't tell you how many people and how long it took me to get out of the the place of being the person where it was 6 years later
Yeah.
that I'm looking back on things like, damn, I'm really glad I went through that because I learned so much. And if that perspective of what can I learn from this was a little bit more initial in the challenge, then where would I be at now? And so that framework, as far as the lens in which I see things, has really helped propel myself forward because now all of a sudden it's not, why did this happen to me? It's like, damn, I'm glad this has happened to me because look at where I'm at now.
Yeah. What can you learn from each event? Or like,
Yeah.
I know this happened, and I know at that moment it felt like the world was against me, but why did I feel that way?
Yeah.
What was it that made me feel the world is against me? Because that's not like the intention of the event that's happening. The event has no intention whatsoever. It just happens.
Yeah.
But you provide meaning to that event, and whether you want to be positive in your sense or negative is up to you.
Yeah, and so think about that. So like if that's the framework, right? Then all of a sudden you're creating this new program in your brain, and this is science and biology. So when you experience something else, it allows you to get out of that pattern, loop that we're all in because of how we were trained as young, and then start to be the decision maker. And I think this is where, you really step into what you do here at the podcast, and you really start to allow for these young people who are exiting foster care or who are still in foster care to recognize that, hey, I am this unique combination of trillions of photons. No one else is like me. Let me go ahead and step into that. I have a tagline for KIP. Y'all just heard what it means. It's keep it positive, and step into you is really what that all represents, because the moment you do that, your life will just expand because you're expanding yourself intentionally.
Yeah.
So
let's take a little break.
Yeah.
Going back, you provided the philosophy behind KIP, but what was its birth?
Well, I mean, I think you go through trauma in life, and you have tons of content, right? So I don't know if we mentioned this, but I am from foster care, so I've had a rough childhood. Just in brief, I have had a father who's been addicted to heroin all my life. And then a mother who's kind of alcoholic. So it's been really interesting growing up as a kid. And I think what that's done for me is I view it as a bunch of gasoline, right? I have this thought that those who go through heavy trauma, like foster youth, for instance, automatically they have to be hyper aware.
Yeah.
That's that vigilant, exactly, vigilant that comes out. But what ends up happening is as we, go into that adulthood, right? Whether it's lack of community support resources, we're still hyper aware and sometimes manic, and we can't use all this fuel of our life. And so, for me, what I saw in my own experience about 8 years ago was I had all this gasoline, and I was kind of in a place where I wanted to find out more of who I was and, what my purpose is. I think something that we all go through. And what I recognized was that the moment I really became centered, the moment that I really used my conscious control for my physiological functioning, such as my heart rate and my breathing and how stressed or tense I was, then all of a sudden it felt like my lightning rod of insight and awareness that I've created over my traumatic life all of a sudden stuck into the ground. And every insightful aha epiphany that my life has been basically curating started to flow through me. And I'll tell you right now that when that experience happened, not only was it this conceptual understanding, but it was this embodying feeling. And what I recognize is that it's through the experiential evidence that you really start to gain this confidence in what it is you're actually understanding. And for me, that was really powerful, because growing up in a very religious background, it was always, you should believe this because. And, children, and much like myself now, I just am very curious. I ask a lot of why questions, and I was never able to really get a response that felt connected. And so that, along with just, again, trauma in life, really helped me start collecting all of this gasoline. So that way, when I chose to step into myself, when I chose to become the person that I wanted to become, then I was the one that was sticking my lightning rod in the ground and really allowing for what has always been there to be seen.
Yeah.
And it was completely transformative and powerful. And It started off with just breathe, right? It'll all work out, just breathe. That's all I knew, relax the body. And then it turned into the understanding through research about intention and positivity. And through that, Keep It Positive was born. And it's just been this constant evolution and living process of experience of life. And, I feel really fortunate to consistently step into it on a daily basis to help guide my own life and, where I'm at.
Yeah, you're making that little quote unquote shortcut of like, okay, if I'm feeling a little bit out of line, let's kind of center us a little bit. Let's go.
Yeah, it's taking
the more you do it, the better you get at it.
Right. Well, that's a good point. So it's taking it from a conceptual understanding. If I were to tell you, hey, keep it positive, Irving, it's very hard for someone who's in a struggling state, right? Yeah. Survival mode to keep it positive, to even understand that, right? But at the same token, if all of a sudden I'm helping create that bridge of understanding, now it gives you a little bit more of an opportunity to see how it applies to you. Yeah. So I say that because you can live it conceptually, and it can just be that, hey, keep it positive and let it boost you happy when you can. Or in my case, it's turning that understanding into a lifestyle and really looking at the frame in which you see things as, what can I learn from this with everything? And then when the lifestyle is created, now all of a sudden you're in it. You are in who you are, which is your heart.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thanks for listening.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. No. It's okay. That's what you're here for. It's for us to listen, for me to provide the route for you to come up with this conversation and just feel natural, because I mean, like I said before, I don't want it to be scripted. You come here with a book or whatever, and then you tell me like word by word reading a paragraph. I want it to come from you so that people can realize that it's actually what you want to do. It's genuine. It's not just, hearsay or whatever.
Yeah.
So if anybody wants to come to this realization of keep it positive, and make this a lifestyle, what are you doing to provide that?
Well, there's a few things that I do. You're more than welcome to go onto my site. It's kipeveryone.com. You can check me out there. I do consulting for companies and organizations. I also do coaching as well. And I also have motivational speeches and other seminars that I provide for people. So that's one way of, kind of starting this whole path. And then the other way is to just intentionally start to explore what it means for you. And I don't necessarily mean that in the words of keep it positive, but in the essence of what it means, which is, if you go through an experience, whether it's challenging or not, just play with this perspective of what can I learn from it. See if you can allow for that to be the first thing, or at least the second or third thing that comes up. And my encouragement is, as you explore it, as you step into you, if it really starts to resonate with you and you feel this upliftment and maybe a greater understanding, then reach out to me, because I look at that as your heart's telling you something. And, if we listen to our heart, then we're going to be okay. I'll share one thing I came up with the other day where I was speaking with someone I was coaching, and I said, look, we can go brain dead and still live, but we can't go heart dead. That's just dead. And so my thought is, let's focus on the heart. Let's let that be the one who holds the reins of our life, and have enough trust in ourselves in order to do that. Because at the end of the day, we have such a finite amount of time here. Do we really want to allow other people, but more importantly ourselves, to hold us back from being everything that we can be? So I encourage all of you just to explore it. Reach out to me. You can go to the website. You can also look me up on YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter, and Facebook under The Kip Lifestyle. That's right. We make it a lifestyle over here.
All of them are the same, The Kip Lifestyle.
The Kip Lifestyle. Make it super simple. If you want to go to Twitter, you can get some good Kip tips daily as far as what you can do to step into yourself more. Facebook's going to be more of that community page where there's going to be some really great self-care resources. YouTube is going to be more of the inspirational interviews like you're doing right now, and just showcasing what it is people can do. And Instagram is going to be pretty unique. It's actually questions on a weekly basis every other day, and some other stuff that we're going to be doing. So just a lot of fun stuff.
To provide an example for the people that are listening, what's one of the questions that you would provide on Instagram?
So one of the questions from my book is, I'll give you a chapter. It's what's one of the chapters? Wait, let me have my coffee first. I think it's chapter 4 or something. And the essence is that with these questions, it allows for not only you to understand yourself more, but those that you want to bring into your sacred circle of relationships, you can get to know them more. So a question could be, Irving, what about life inspires you in this moment right now?
a little bit deeper, right? A little lighter of a question could be, Irving, if you were to take two fruits and combine them to make them the perfect one, what would they be? Right.
Okay.
Yeah. You gotta work up to those deeper questions.
Yeah.
It's hard because we're not trained to be so reflective, but it's within us. And so if we put effort into that, then wow, what you can come up with is transformative.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I like that question. That what inspires you? Because it's changing. Like today, I could be inspired by you. I could be inspired by Omar. I could be inspired by anybody around me. But then tomorrow, it could be a totally different person. It could be an event. It could be a totally different thing. So I think that's like you get to see how that person's feeling at that moment. I mean, of course, there's always that inspiration that you carry on throughout your whole life, but the majority of your life. But then you have those smaller inspirations, those people that you see on the street. It's like, oh, that person's holding the door. Like maybe I should hold the door. All these things that you see that you may think are mundane. They're making an impact on you. They're making an impact on what you're seeing. So that's why the more you see negative things, the more negative of a person you're going to become.
Yeah.
So I think the more you're exposed to this behavior, for me, like I love hip hop. I like rap. I like that, but I like the beat. I'm not so fond of the lyrics. Mm-hmm. I mean, if I listen to hip hop, I'm not listening to it for the lyrics. I'm not listening to it for the message. I mean, which is why I listen to it at all, right? You would think. But it's more of like the body feels it, But I never embrace it. I never make it seem like it's something that it's behavior that I want people to do. But I do listen to other types of music. Okay, if I'm going to go lyrical, if I'm going to go meaningful, this is where I'm going to go. This is my place. This is my spot. They might not be so rhythmically like upbeat, but they're more, soulful. It's more nutrient in that sense.
Yeah, there was
It's fast food, or then you want like a good, a good keto meal.
Yeah, my fiance would say keto all the way, but no.